Hi, everybody. Welcome to Meet the Mailers. I'm Paul Bobnack for Who's Mailing What, and today I'm talking with Corey Daugherty, Head of Business Development of Flowcode, and we're going to be talking about QR codes in direct mail and direct marketing. Now, before we get started, if you have any questions or feedback, please comment in the box below. You can show your support by tapping the like button, and if you want to get notified of when we add new videos to the Who's Mailing What channel, click on subscribe. Now let's meet the mailers. Hey, Corey, welcome.
Hey, how's it going? Thanks, Paul.
Good. How are you doing today? Why don't we just start by talking about your background? I understand your background really isn't very much in print, but is in marketing.
Yeah, exactly. I've been fortunate enough to be at Flowcode since inception, and I think my background has always wanted to be at a startup, more specifically in tech, and so that's kind of how I landed at Flowcode in the early days. Um,
Hmm.
we were doing a lot of testing with brands to try to help them directly connect with their audience and customers. And we ended up doing a lot of testing with QR code technology. So that's how, we stumbled upon creating flowcode.com as a self-service
Hmm.
enterprise grade QR management platform.
Hmm. And what is your job involved today, like on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, so I've definitely had a lot of roles at Flowcode. Um,
Hmm.
I started as kind of in a chief of staff type role, and then for the next 3.5 years was a product manager, just working alongside design engineers on kind of crafting the different features on the site. And then for the past year, I've kind of been working more on the business development, partnerships, and API side of things,
Okay.
which enables a lot of the scaled flow code use cases. So that's how I've become very involved and connected with the direct mail use case, as we'll get into. But that's
Right.
obviously a very scaled use case. So
Hmm.
been fortunate to get to know that industry well.
Right. Now, for our viewers and listeners, can you give like a little bit of a rundown on flow code, maybe like a little history, and include like all of the non-mail uses where you have a market leading presence? Because I got to say, like I walk in a supermarket
Yeah.
and you get a lot of the shelf talkers, and you see a QR code there, and you look real close, and it's a flow code.
Yep. Yeah. No. One of the more interesting things about working at a tech company that you kind of walk outside and all of a sudden see your product. I think that's
Yeah.
always been a very unique part of Flowcode.
Yeah.
But yeah, going back early 2019, like I said, we were working with brands in a very close capacity. Um, doing a lot of tests with them on all types of mediums, right? Direct mail being one, but bus stop ads, catalogs, TV commercials. I was the youngest in the office, so I was the guinea pig of actually being on some television commercials, pointing left, saying scan this QR code. And the whole purpose of doing all these tests was to see, you know, could we help directly connect this brand to their customers and potential audience? And we found out two things. One, if you tell people how to scan, they will. And
Hmm.
so that went across all mediums, which was really cool to see. But I think the more important thing and kind of the bigger learning that we had was that once people scanned, they were much more likely to actually take an action post scan than they were in other, digital campaigns. So that high intention action of scanning a QR code was kind
Hmm.
of like an aha moment, which is why we founded flowcode.com in November of 2019, obviously prior to the pandemic. So a few months
Yeah.
later, the pandemic was, a bit of a tailwind for educating people how to interact with our products. But it also taught, it also connected a lot of dots for many of the different industries that, you see flow codes today where, you know, hey, I'm at a restaurant and I'm scanning to see a menu. Not the most powerful use case in the world,
Right.
but if you're a real estate company and you are now, oh, I'm scanning to a PDF menu. I wonder if I could have this on, an open house and help me, sell $1 million home, right?
Hmm.
And so, fast forward, long story short, we're working now with over 75% of the Fortune 1000 companies. We're heavily involved in real estate, sports, right? If you go to Madison Square Garden, you have Flowcodes on the jumbotron,
Yeah.
um, on the seats at arenas. So sports, media, entertainment, education. A lot of universities use us, and I think it's a pretty unique thing where QR has become so ubiquitous that it really slices across so many different industries.
Right.
And so what we see is, the major use cases are collecting first party data, right? Name, email, phone, valuable to everybody, commerce experiences, as well as some type of knowledge share, watch this video type of content interaction. And those three, for the most part, go across all industries, um,
Right.
and go into many use cases like uh, direct mail.
Right. And events too, which is really how I really became heavily exposed to you at Printing United.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
Yep. Well, let's just, jump right into it and start talking about QR codes and, the tech behind them. I think most people in our audience are really at least familiar with them, like you said, especially because of the pandemic. Why don't we start by at least explaining like how many different types of QR codes there are and how Flowcode differs from them?
Yeah. I think it's a good point, first of all, that just acknowledging that your audience is unique to most audiences about their connection with QR codes. Uh, Diving into the print direct mail community, it was very clear early on that a lot of these printers had tested out QR codes
Yeah.
10 years prior. And honestly, we're kind of left with a sour taste in their mouth. And
Hmm.
so it's been for good reason because, 10 years ago, we mentioned obviously people didn't really know how to engage with the QR code back then. So that was
Hmm.
the first problem. The second problem was, if they did know how to engage, they had to have a separate app on their phone, right? Okay. And then if they knew how to engage, if they had the separate app and they scan, they're on like an iPhone 4 or a pretty not the best mobile experience for that landing page.
Right.
So you're not seeing the great conversions that you're seeing today. So for good reason, these the print community has kind of a sour taste about QR codes. And so now we're lucky enough to be in a state where all three of those things are not true anymore.
That's
Um,
right.
and so getting into kind of like the different, flavors of QR codes, it's all built on the same technology, right? Um, I think what separates Flowcode from the rest is the focus on data, design, privacy, and the eventual conversion.
Okay.
Um, so from a design standpoint, Flowcode has a number of patents in terms of creating, you know, a more on-brand, consumer-facing, appealing QR code, um, which you know it kind of shows up in the data where flow codes are 2.5 times more likely to be scanned than
Hmm.
standard we say ugly QR codes. But
Right.
so that's really important from the design standpoint. Um, when we were doing all this testing, in 2019, one of the other things that we really came across was that there wasn't a lot of privacy or security focus on QR codes that there was in the digital world, right?
Right.
There's all these standards with digital advertising that wasn't really coming to the QR code. So when we founded Flowcode from the very beginning, we wanted to make sure that we were privacy compliant, GDPR, CCPA, SOC 2. And so that's another differentiator from your standard out of the box free generator. um, Very important when you're talking to the enterprise level clients that we work with day in and day out. So that's a no brainer. um, Data is kind of the meat and potatoes of Flowcode and another core differentiator where, you know, all the scan performance, the conversion performance is real time.
Hmm.
You know, you can see the blips in your dashboard when you're running you mentioned other types of mediums, a TV commercial campaign. You
Right.
can see where people are scanning in from. Oh, I didn't know I had this much audience in Atlanta versus, you know, New York. The insights are real time. I mentioned geo specific. You know, you can get into the nitty gritty of, you know, what marketers are used to seeing on their digital campaigns,
Hmm.
all the specifics and level of data granularity they can now expect from their offline campaigns,
Right.
right? And
Right.
so that's really what we're pushing towards. And then the final piece, like I mentioned, is the conversion, right? People are excited about getting scans. It's a, you know, it's another click
Right.
essentially, and
Right.
you're able to see that, and you probably weren't able to see that before. But where it scans to is more important
Hmm.
to all these marketers and to the brands that we work with. So we work very closely with making sure that the scan experience, what are they trying to accomplish? Is it a purchase? Is it a form fill out? You know, the list goes on. We want
Hmm.
to make that highly converting as possible. So we have a lot of products, conversion pixels, optimizations to make sure that that is as seamless as possible for the consumer as well.
Right. Yeah, that kind of brings me to my next point, which is talking about, one of the factors in the resurgence of QR codes is that previously, 10 years ago, is that QR codes went to a website, just a basic homepage, and it was
Yep.
static, and the consumer is left with saying, and now what? And they didn't have any answer. There was no answer provided by uh, marketers to that question.
No, definitely.
Mhm.
There's so many creative and strategic ways to implement QR now
Mhm.
that it can just be an extension of your brand, and it doesn't just have to be, hey, we're going to the website. We'll hope for the best.
Right, right. Is there like any kind of an estimate about, how many, um, how much mail includes a QR code, like as a percentage of the mail universe?
It's a good question. So with the USPS promotion that they had last
Mhm.
year, we definitely saw an uptick. I wish I had a good percentage for you. I would put
Right.
it at probably below 10%.
Okay.
Still, which, you know, to me boggles my mind.
Yeah.
That's why we're here, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, but we definitely saw an uptick in interest from the promotion, which, you know, that's why they do the promotions. I
Right.
will say though that, like, what we're hoping for in the future from a USPS promotion and working towards and advocating for is focusing, and we'll get into the best practices, but like really focusing on the best practices of QR codes on mail,
Hmm.
which lead to higher results, which lead to people, you know, seeing the ROI, right, and wanting to implement more mail. I think what we saw because of the promotion sometimes was, you know, we'll slap a basic QR code on the back right of the mail to get the promotion, which, you know, you're gonna have anyway. Like, it's gonna happen. I'm not, but if there's, you know, the personalization aspect, the design, the size of the code, the call to action, right? The focusing on the conversion experience, all of those things are very simple to do,
Hmm.
but they lead to so much higher engagement and conversion rates that that's really where we want to see, you know, not just QR on print and QR on mail, but we want to see it like highly activated, if that makes
Hmm.
sense.
Yeah. No, I mean, it makes sense. You want, uh, as we were talking about before, that you want somebody to be able to do something and get something out of that experience rather than just an ordinary scan with their phone.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, we've seen a 300% increase in the scan rate on direct mail just by increasing the size of the code. Like
Wow.
that's pretty simple to do, right?
Right.
And
Right.
we understand that there's a lot of, you know, decision points that go into a direct mail campaign,
Yeah.
right? Who owns the creative? Is it the printer themselves? Is it the brand? How is that collaborated, right? Like, and increasing the size of a black and white code might
Mhm.
rub some people the wrong way.
I can
So I think
imagine.
yeah, you can imagine. Yeah. So having that code be on brand, right? And consumer facing and friendly,
Mhm.
number one is going to increase the scan rate just because of that. But then when it allows for people to be more open to the idea of embedding it into the creative a little bit more, which, compounds on each other for a higher engagement rate.
Right, right. Well, what kinds of best practices, speaking of with QR codes, lead to uh, the big improvements that you're talking about in engagement and conversion rates? I'm thinking of things that elevate that interactivity and allow more measurement
Yep.
by a marketer.
Great question. We talk about this all the time. We're really fortunate at Flowcode to have a great customer success team that
Hmm.
works with directly with the printers and the brands to make sure that we're getting the most out of every single campaign that we can. Size is obvious, right? You want it to be easily scannable, first of all, right? And so if you're able to implement it at a little larger of a size into the creative, we definitely would advocate to do so. There's other small tweaks you can do, like a call to action, which I mentioned earlier,
Yeah.
right? If the audience, the recipient is aware of where the scan is going to,
Hmm.
right? Prior to scanning it, it's very helpful, right? Um, Try not to use scan to learn more. That's,
Hmm. Right.
not the most exciting thing in the world.
And it's kind of nebulous. It's
Yeah,
just doesn't tell you anything.
exactly. Yeah. So as much as you can to get a little bit more creative, or scan to get X% off, like that. There's
Right.
a lot of incentive ways to just, oh, okay, if I scan this, I know where I'm going.
Hmm.
It's a value exchange. Um, Scan for a chance to win. Still
Hmm.
pretty general, but like, there's a lot of ways that you can go. So definitely a call to action. A lot of times we help clients append some type of scan education as
Hmm.
well. A lot of little graphics, or use your phone's camera. I know we're past the pandemic where people know what a QR code is, but
Right.
you'd be surprised how just implementing a little bit of education is just a little bit of a reminder at times.
Right.
And so that you see a lift with that a lot. On print, probably less so than on like a TV commercial where you can actually have a voiceover and
Hmm. Right.
someone pointing to it, which is what I was alluding to earlier. But
Yeah.
definitely still important. And then the final one, which is specific to direct mail a lot of the times, is the ability to make that code hyper personalized to the recipient,
Okay.
right? I'll use the TV commercial as the bad example here. Unfortunately, you can't put a unique code on every single, commercial that goes out there.
Hmm. Right. Yeah.
That would be great if you could, but
It's
in direct
broadcast.
mail, variable printing, printers do this in their sleep.
Right.
And
Right.
so, it yields a really interesting conversion, so that the recipient can have not only a unique code that can be tracked uniquely,
Hmm.
but the experience can be personalized.
Yeah.
You can have that name and address field of a form already pre-populated,
Right.
right? You can have "Hi Corey" at the top of the landing page. There's all these little things that you can do to reduce friction, increase personalization, to, you know, increase conversion rate.
Right.
And doing that at scale, at the millions, right? That's what
Yeah. Yeah.
people are used to. So that's kind of like the best practices, where the hyper personalization is very unique to the direct mail world.
Hmm. And I imagine there's like a good amount of uh, first party data that creates in the process too.
100%, a
Yeah.
100%. It's interesting because it can exist in different areas of a marketing funnel, right? It could be at the prospecting phase where, I don't really know who I'm sending this to.
Right.
And I would like to know which address recipients are, interacting with my brand. And I'd
Hmm.
be able to get that cohort in real time,
Hmm.
right? This Flowcode ID is matched with this address. And now I know that is different from this Flowcode ID and this, right? So that's prospecting. There's also to your known customers, right? And so if I'm sending something to you, Paul, and I know you've been my customer for 5 years and I know your order history and I know whatever, I can actually tailor that scan experience something to you, taking in all those factors versus sending to Corey, who's been, a customer for a month and maybe doesn't know XYZ.
Right.
And then there's the retargeting side of it, right?
Oh, yeah.
And this is getting into kind of the programmatic direct mail side of things, which is on the uptick of people kind of understanding what's going on, where, people come to your site all the time. These printers have a lot of this data so that they can actually retarget with the postcard
Yeah.
programmatically. And that's a completely different side of the marketing funnel. But it's, a real world interaction retargeting, right? Versus seeing something on a Facebook ad. You know what I mean? So
Right. Right.
a lot of different ways to get into the different touch points.
Yeah. I mean, it's so interesting that that is still in its real infancy stages of capturing people using their devices dozens, maybe hundreds of times a day, you know, and being able to capture that and then do something with it.
Exactly. I think I saw something where it represents like about one programmatic direct mail is at like 1% of the greater, direct mail,
Yeah. Yeah.
which is it's only going to go up. It's going to be really
Yeah.
interesting to see.
Right. Right. Well, let's talk a little bit more about customer experience. What role does a QR code play in creating a seamless, like unified experience for a customer with their brand and interacting like on multiple levels, as they're going along the customer journey?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting because it can be so flexible, right? It really depends on the campaign, the brand, the industry, and
Hmm.
all that can be taken into account with where you're having the scan experience lead to. Um, we have pretty flexible out of the box options. We have a sister product called FlowPage, which
Okay.
allows you to, drag and drop, videos, link outs, phone calls, uh, CRM submission forms, that type of stuff onto landing pages, which is is an option that we see a lot of brands use, and it allows them to extend whatever they're trying to do with the campaign. And another interesting thing, and this is kind of like I would say it's at its infancy because not many people know that Flowcode provides this capability, but you're actually able to programmatically set the scan destination based on a lot of scanner factors. So I'll give you an example.
Okay.
If someone is scanning in the afternoon versus the morning, you could automatically set and route them to the correct destination based on whatever campaign that you want. You want to have a higher coupon in the afternoon than the morning, easy.
Interesting.
And that can be extended not just to time of day,
Hmm.
but to day of week, right? This code is going to update every Monday morning. All of a sudden it's not just a one-time interaction. It's oh, I'm supposed to put this on my fridge and interact with it more. So
Right. Right.
that's something that's interesting. You could also do it by location, right?
Hmm.
Down to the Latin longitude of the actual scanner. So you
Right.
could do
Right.
it by region, so all of these kind of capabilities allow you to be pretty creative and strategic about the brand extending themselves besides just being, scanned to a website,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
it gives the experience of what people are used to on digital to the real world.
Right. Right. Yeah, I mean, that's fascinating. It really just ties into, you know, this thing, and it's like how much everything comes right from this, right?
Exactly.
From your cell phone. Yeah, pretty cool. Well, what kind of marketing teams do you guys work with for customer acquisition for direct mail? I mean, do they have to be mail people specifically, or do you talk more to like channel neutral growth marketing teams and retention teams who maybe don't have as much day-to-day familiarity with mail?
This kind of goes back to my earlier answer on us being like QR codes being so ubiquitous that we're,
Mhm.
spread across so many different industries, have great valuable use cases for flow code and QR. Similar answer here. Um, we get to work with all types of different marketing teams, like from the highly experts of direct mail, like Quad. We've had an incredible relationship with them for the past
Mhm.
3-4 years. Um, down to the mid-level agencies that are working for, like, maybe not a printer themselves but have those relationships, right, to the direct brand relationships that are figuring out how to implement their marketing strategy for the next year. And so again, this comes back to our customer success team being able to plug into each and every type of you know relationship with our clients. And it all comes down to putting a flow code, highly designed flow code that's going to give you great data and insights onto a print piece, right?
Mhm.
And so someone's got to print it. So we're very fortunate to have a lot of different relationships and past experiences with a lot of different routes to get that flow code on the paper.
Right, right. Yeah, that really goes dovetails well with my next question, which is, we've talked a lot about this QR code technology and how it bridges the offline and the online worlds,
Hmm.
but there's also like literally another dimension uh, to what you guys do in working with direct mail, and that's printing embellishments,
Yep.
which is something that I experienced at Printing United last year with you guys. Um, thinking of some of these mail pieces that you guys did with Centosphere and Ken Moore and some other folks with, a scratch and sniff piece, right?
Yep.
Which was pretty cool.
Yeah, we're really proud of that.
Yeah. So how does an embellishment on a direct mail piece or a print piece, how does that help drive action and conversions?
Yeah, as you mentioned, we've been fortunate enough to be able to partner with a lot of experts in the print world that have been doing this a lot longer than us, right?
Yeah.
And have incredible expertise. And you mentioned Kenmore, you mentioned Centosphere, right? Like
Mhm.
they're creating the IRL touch, feel, smell experiences that are proven to increase all types of, you know, engagement. And that's existed for a while. It's really incredible to see the advancement of all the embellishments and capabilities that they're able to do today. um that definitely, we're obviously interested in it because we see flow code, as do others, as a premium high scale, like uh, premium highly designed code
Mhm.
that fits really well with all of these type of advancements and embellishments that you can do just in the look and feel. Centosphere specifically, right? You mentioned the scratch and sniff. You
Yeah.
can,
It's right here. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. They're doing an incredible job of, pausing the consumer, right? All of a sudden this user is interested because they're sniffing a cinnamon bun that's
Right.
on it's, by the way, we've had a few meetings with them because they're great partners of ours.
Right.
It's probably my most memorable meeting I've ever had because all we're doing is scratching and sniffing different scents. It's really impressive. That one's peppermint, right?
Right. This is the peppermint candy cane on this one, and this was just a handout.
Yeah. super easy to implement. But you know, they're pausing the consumer, and now with Flowcode, you're able to understand real-time action from that interest. So it's a really great partnership, and we're fortunate to get to know those type of experts in the printing world.
Right. And you know, what's pretty cool too is one of the things about using scent, whether it's, you know, Centosphere or somebody else, is that these scents last for years
Yeah,
on this
yeah.
piece. So it gives like your mail piece or your print piece where you use uh, the scent and the QR code and whatever else. It gives it like incredible shelf life.
Yep. And I mean, plugging the partner here, the promos in the scented material space now are live in 2024.
Right,
So
right.
it really makes sense to give it a test. It
Hmm.
doesn't have to just be on the inside of
Hmm.
the envelope. It can now actually be on the outside. So
Right.
they've done a ton of great work to kind of provide this promotion for the industry. And so I recommend testing it out, and might as well test it out with a scratch and sniff flow code.
Yeah, 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 absolutely. So talking more broadly, what trends do you see from your viewpoint for direct mail marketing in the next year or so, as well as maybe some other things with you know, dynamic QR codes and
Mhm.
how that's going to lead to more changes in campaigns?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, we talked about programmatic direct mail. So I think
Hmm.
that's going to continue to increase. Once people kind of understand that they can retarget with a, you know, something can arrive in someone that dropped off the conversion funnel on their website, something can arrive in person in 2 to 3 days to their doorstep, and they didn't even have to know their address in order to send that automatically. Like once that starts to click more and more, that's only gonna increase that side of direct mail. So that's gonna be really interesting to watch. Um, the I think the dynamic nature, like I said, of, you know, programmatically changing the redirects. You set it up for, you know, this window of time, it's going to go to this window of time, it's going to go to this. In this region, it's going to go to that. I think this kind of comes back to how I see the QR managers of the world really taking shape in the next year or so. I always relate this to the social media manager, right? Where once Facebook and LinkedIn started to become a real growth marketing channel, that role in every single company was opened for a social media manager. And it really is a whole role of trying to understand, you know, what campaigns are running when, what's my objective for this, when am I flipping this off and this on, right? I think that same mentality will
Hmm.
be taken to your offline flow code manager who
Right.
is thinking about all of your direct mail campaigns when things are, you know, switching scan destinations and why, measuring that impact because you have the real time engagement. So that's my prediction for the QR world as a whole.
Right.
And prediction and also a wish. That's what
Right.
we're trying to do
Mhm.
here. We're trying to show that it's the same level of treatment that you're, you know, you're focused on your digital channels. You can now have that same level of treatment to your offline channels.
Cool. Well, that's pretty exciting and awesome. Um, I think that's a good place to wrap up for today.
Beautiful.
So, how can people contact you and Flowcode to find out more about all of your solutions?
You can contact me directly. That's easy. It's just Corey, Corey at flowcode.com. We also have a, you know, standard contact sales page on flowcode.com that our team is really good at responding quickly to. Maybe test them, see how fast they can
Awesome.
reply. But no, we have a really great team, and would be fortunate to get to know anybody that listens to this. Paul, this was a ton of fun. I really appreciate it.
Oh, you're very welcome. Corey Daugherty from Flowcode, thank you so much for joining me and Who's Mailing What here today on Meet the Mailers. And thank all of you out there for joining us today. If you have any questions or feedback for me or my guest, you can leave them in the box below. You can show your support for the program by tapping the like button and click on subscribe to be notified of new videos when they're added to our channel. If you want to be a guest on a future episode of Meet the Mailers, I really want to hear from you. So my contact info can be found in the paragraph below by tapping Show More. Thanks again for watching Meet the Mailers, and see you here next time.